Hey YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Cliffjumper Cars. We are about to jump into the radio harness issues. Now I think I shared in the end of our last video a brief synopsis of why I need to fix the radio harness. Well, it had a factory CD controller head unit, which I loved, but for whatever reason there's a diode or something that burns out in the factory head unit and it will stop communicating with the trunk-based CD changer. Well, I've gone through several head units in the last 10 years and they tend to last about a year or two and then they die. And back when they were available for $25 from the dealer, this was not a big issue. I just go buy a new one, pop it in, and everything was great. I think eventually I will go fix the stock head unit that I still have, see whatever the issue is in there and try to repair that problem that's keeping it from communicating with the CD changer. But in the meantime, I found a replacement head unit made by Custom Radio Systems. They make radios for semi-trucks, but they happen to make one. It's a flush mount design. Now, a lot of modern radio head units kind of bulge out from your dash and they don't look really in place with a 80s or 90s car. It definitely does not look period correct. I wanted period correct, but I also wanted Bluetooth and I wanted a CD changer, and I wanted to make sure that not only was it period correct looking in general, that it had the green illumination that matches the factory illumination for my car. Well, Custom Radio Systems makes this thing. It's model number CSS 5930BT. It's still available. You can buy them on their website. And by the way, I will mention that they're a very small company based in the Midwest, and their customer service is stellar. I've been jumping on the phone with one of their engineers talking about some of the ways that their radio works. Paul, thank you so much for that. I appreciate your time. It's great chatting with you. Anyway, one of the things that I discovered was that the illumination wasn't working right with the rheostat of my Corrado. So when I would turn the dimness up, it would turn the dimness down in the radio and vice versa. So it was opposite. And as I'm trying to figure out what I did there, I pulled it out and I just double checked the wiring diagram. And it turns out that I wired the harness wrong. I got a few wires completely wrong. So I need to go back in there and desolder them and reconnect them wire by wire and make sure that they're in the right place. And then we'll see if the radio works the way it's supposed to before I bother the good folks like Paul at Custom Radio anymore with my technical questions. So let's see if I can get this sorted out today. Installed this wiring harness. Do I technically need this harness? No. All it is an extension of the existing harness, so I have a little bit more room because these wires are all the way back up in here. They're really hard to plug into the deck, getting your hand in there. So all I did is I got this wiring harness from Crutchfield. It's just an extension, but when I installed it, I wasn't paying attention. I did it wrong. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going back, and if I connect the connector to the spot here, I'm just double checking that the wires that they are supposed to go to actually go to the wires they're supposed to go to. So this one, for example, is an orange wire with a red stripe. Now, according to the wiring diagram and this location, that is the alarm, and that should go to what is over here, apparently a brown wire that I've got nothing connected to. And instead, it is going to a different spot where there is literally nothing in the wiring harness going there. So I'm going to have to clip this and resolder it to the correct spot. So attention to detail is important when you are doing wiring, and I must have been in a hurry or something, but you know, make mistakes. That's kind of like the story of the Corrado. Mistakes were made. So I've got enough of tinned wire there. I shouldn't have to redo anything, I'm gonna pull the old shrink wrap off of this guy here. Again, I'm not actually stripping the wire, I'm just pulling off the shrink wrap that is left over from the previous botched job. And should cooperate with me here and just strip that off. There we go. Again, there's enough tinned wire there that I should be able to just put on some new shrink wrap, solder it together, and be off to the races. So I'm going to throw my shrink wrap on the thicker side of the wire. And again, I'm going to double check here. Oh yeah, I almost goofed it up. So this wire is not tinned at all. I'm going to need to strip it, tin it, prepare it. So these are great tools here, easy wire stripper. I'm going to put some flux on the end here. And I like to add solder to the tip of my soldering iron rather than to the wire itself. So I'm going to just put solder right on the tip. Just tin the end of that. Set my soldering iron aside for the moment. And now, make sure it's cool enough that I can slip this on without shrinking it. Give that some room down here. And I'm going to come back to my cable that is... Oh, someone's texting me. Hear my droid calling. Alright, so now I'm actually going to connect these two, and we should be good. Great. So, my soldering iron. There are probably better techniques for holding onto things and soldering them, but whatever. All right. There we go. So I've got a few more wires in here that I'm going to have to redo, just like this one, and to make sure that they are very happy, solidly connected. These ones are not, so I'm just going to come back. Oh yeah, that one's splitting. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that one. Probably twist the wires together and retin it. I've got some room there, so I'm going to redo that. Okay, so I'm just going to clip this off where it's messing it up a little bit. Strip it. And I'm going to re-strip that because I took off too much cable. There we go. This time I'm going to twist the strands together so they don't come apart. And then I'm going to tin it. First I'll add flux. Put some solder on the end of my soldering gun. Doesn't take much. That is properly tinned. Check out this guy here. I'm going to take off the excess solder. Oh, looks like a little leftover cable. Shake that off. Get a little bit more solder on the end of the tip here. And probably gonna resort to going and getting a set of forceps so I can hold this together without fighting myself. I do happen to have some, and that's a good habit, so actively prevent myself from burning myself, because this is all sorts of sketchy. But if you do it right, it should just take a second. Alright. That's a good solder joint. And now I'm going to go ahead and work my heat shrink over it. Some people use the tip of the soldering iron to undo the heat shrink. I just use this bigger surface area part. It's got a slightly lower temperature, so I'm not risking remelting the solder and losing my connection here. And there we go. So I got a few more that I need to do. So I have rewired this, and now I am going to plug it back in. So again, the reason I did this is because these harnesses are back deep inside and not that easy to manipulate. So the little extension is supposed to make my life easier, but of course if I had wired it correctly in the first place, I would have probably accomplished that. So am I doing the right side? Let's get one last try. Yeah, that should be. There we go. Alright, both of those are in. And before I tuck this all back in, I'm going to plug in the radio and try firing it up, make sure everything works. First of all, yeah, let's see how that works. So I'm using an aftermarket radio. This is one of those trucker radios. It happens to have period correct illumination and the same wiring harness as the Corrado wiring harness, also the Mark III and a lot of older, more recent Mark IIs. So all sorts of stuff that uses this. So let's see. I'm not gonna completely tuck it just yet, just see if we have power. So, magic words, please work. Alright, we appear to have power. And we have some radio happening. Let's find a station that actually comes in around here. Oh yeah. Alright, well, we do have function, which is great. Alright, cool. Well, I'm going to call that mission successful. Now I got to reconnect the Bluetooth and everything. But we're off to the races, which is great. Jumped the gun on saying goodbye because I do need to tuck the wiring. If you look back inside here, you will notice that there's not a lot of room for anything. So you want to make sure the wires are not going to get crunched as you stick them. Stick the radio back in here. So the wires are going to get tucked up into the left-hand side there. So it's a little bit of a trick to get this managed. The bulk of the wiring harness can be trained to go back in the right place as you put the radio in. And then if you do it right, it should slide back in, but of course it is not, which means something is interfering, and we just need to see what that might possibly be, and that might actually be this. So we're gonna this is supposed to keep the radio from rattling around back there, but there's not a lot of room, so if it sticks too far, then what ends up happening is it interferes all the way in the back with that little bracket, and there's a part of the AC system is back there. So I'm probably going to trim this a little bit so it doesn't stick out quite as far, and then we should be good. Alright, so I got the stereo wired in. As you can see, it's got the period correct green lighting, which I'm a big fan of. Some people are not, but whatever, I like it. But this is the CSS Bluetooth radio, so I can hook up my phone. This does have a CD player, which I'm not planning to use because I'm using the slots to hold my phone. And yeah, so shoving that in there. We've got USB power, and I select Bluetooth. And I'm pretty happy with that. So anyway, it's a fairly attainable stereo that matches the interior all right, and doesn't stick out like crazy like some do. It's not perfectly flush, but it's close enough that it is, you know, it's in the neighborhood. It looks like it belongs, and I like it. So yeah, there it is. So if you like this sort of nerdy, weird repair, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.